Yeah,
All right.
back in the room.
Back in the room. This is a guest episode. And look over here. I've got my mate, Seth Davidson, school psychologist, in the room.
Woo!
Can't believe it.
I know, right? All right. So let's crack on and welcome
Crack
to
on.
ADHDville. Yes, it's my mate, Seth Davidson. We met in the park. We both had pugs.
Both the pugs.
Yeah, that was like 14 years ago.
That's right.
14 years
14 years
ago.
And they're both called Eddie.
No.
No.
Just there is only one. There's only one Eddie. All right. So this is a guest episode. We have Seth and let's crack on. Over to you, Paul.
Yeah, so I'm Paul Thompson. I was diagnosed with the combined AD and H and the AD and the D 9 months ago.
And my name's Martin West, and I was diagnosed with the combined poo-poo platter of ADHD in 2013. And over here is...
Hello, I'm Seth Davidson. I'm a school psychologist. And while I don't have a formal diagnosis of ADHD, I've had quite a journey growing up.
Wow. All right.
Okay.
Let's...
So we're just two mates who, by coincidence, after 39 years of friendship, discovered that we're co-ADHDers. Hurrah!
Hurrah!
So it's really important to say that this is an entertainment podcast about adult ADHD, does not substitute for individualized advice from qualified health professionals.
Which
So
he
do
is.
not take any. Well, maybe this time we can. So don't take any advice from us, especially me. We're just here as a kind of all-inclusive ADHD punk bench with room for everyone, including your doppelgangers, your alter egos, your double doubles, body doubles, your chaperones, and your best buddies. Okay, still here? Okay, great. Then grab your jetpacks, your pedalos, your space hoppers, or any other transportation methods, and let us take you to ADHDville, an imaginary town that we created in our minds.
Yeah, bites.
We like to explore different parts of the ADH and the D.
Oh. Okay. Got a bit of a...
Yeah.
Nice applause there.
Yeah. Very, very polite. And we start off, as always, in the town hall of ADHDville, in the mayor's office, where we, the joint mayors of ADHDville, take care of business. I'm just going through our agenda notes, and this is a guest episode, so let's just crack on. But first, we have to kind of where shall we go? Where shall we go, Paul?
I think, Martin. Glad you asked. I think we should go to the coffee shop. I was thinking.
All right. Yeah. Always a good place. Oh, look,
I've got my coffee ready.
He's already brought his own coffee to take to the coffee shops. I'm not
you
quite
can
sure.
never have enough, really.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All
right, let's just bring the car around the front, and we'll let's go. I brought my drink too. All right, I'm getting the drinks in. What are you getting, Paul?
I'll get a espresso lungo, a long espresso.
I think that's what you had last time.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Oh, you could have. I could go the opposite. You can have a espresso ristretto, which is like it's like a half an espresso. It's still an espresso. Yeah. It's called a ristretto.
It's eventually it's going to get like homeopathy, where there's like no coffee in it. There's just the memory of coffee in a cup.
Yeah.
Delicious memories.
The delicious memories of coffee, which is basically...
Italians will tell you that, or some Italians will tell you that ristretto is the best way to get your coffee.
All right.
So it's like a super condensed espresso.
Wow.
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that too. It sounds like I could have that intravenously. And what are you having?
Well, right now I've got my iced coffee,
All
even though
right.
it's in a hot coffee thing.
Okay.
Iced coffee with a little bit of oat milk and agave is my drink of choice.
Oh, agave.
Yeah.
All right.
Just for a touch of sweetness.
All right.
Yeah.
How hipster of you.
Thank you.
Actually, no. What am I talking about? It's like if it was like local Westchester bees, honey, then that would be hipster.
Yeah. This is Pete's coffee.
Oh yeah. Pete's coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm just having a green tea because I love it. All right. So we've got Seth here. So I think we can start off by kind of going, right, what's been your your neurodivergent journey or your journey into this world?
Yeah. Well, first I just got to say, Martin and Paul, it's a pleasure to be here in ADHDville.
Isn't it?
It is. I like this town a lot. And the mayors of it, they're not too bad. They're not too bad.
Well, so, we're up for elections shortly, so
put in a good word.
Yeah. So it helps.
Okay. Yeah. Well, as I mentioned,
we'd be nice to everyone at the moment. Kissing babies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. Yeah. Well, as I mentioned before, I've had a kind of unique journey in my own life. Not unlike many other people, I've had a lot of personal struggles, both from the social emotional standpoint growing up and academically. I was definitely not the brightest student. And I had my fair share of struggles. And with a good amount of support, I managed to get myself through, grade school and high school. And that's kind of where I turned it around after that. I ended up going to a small school to get an associate's degree in early childhood education. And then following that, I got a bachelor's 4-year degree in psychology.
Wow.
So I had this education degree, which couldn't do a lot with, and this psychology degree that I also couldn't do a lot with. And but I always knew I wanted to work with kids and help kids because I knew that it was a struggle for me growing up, and I wanted to make it better in some capacity for other kids. I actually worked at a preschool in Brooklyn, and that's where I met Martin about 14 years ago in Brooklyn.
I wasn't in the preschool.
He was one of my students in the preschool, actually.
It was like a catch-up year, how they keep pushing you back year after year. I was still in preschool, age 45.
Okay.
Yeah. So Martin was one of my favorite students at that time.
Okay, right. Yeah. So I'm curious, Seth. Like when you're doing, a 4-year degree course in psychology, did you have a kind of like an innate awareness that you had to approach it different from other students? Did you have a kind of some kind of awareness that you just like think differently and learn differently?
Yeah, I think so, but I couldn't really pinpoint it. I didn't have any self-awareness really, I think, at that time, and enough awareness of others to really identify what it was going on. And I think part of it is just I had too much going on in my own personal life to figure it out, in grade school. But yeah, I always thought, maybe a little bit differently and was a little bit different than some of my peers, for sure. But yeah. Okay. And, I worked in this preschool, and while it was great, I loved working with little kids. To be honest, I was losing money every day that I was living in Brooklyn, working in a preschool. It was really expensive, and I knew I had to go back to school to further my education and do something different. And I learned about this field of school psychology. I'd never heard about it before. I don't even know if there are any school psychologists growing up. For me, I probably could have used one myself growing up, for sure.
I could use one. I mean, Jesus. I mean, there wasn't. I mean, I think the only thing we had was the school nurse that you'd only see if you're like, if you're barfing up.
Yeah.
And then that was it.
That was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
Nothing else. You're on your own, pal. Crack on was the
crack on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that was kind of the attitude, probably for you guys growing up, and even for me, there weren't really many supports for students with ADHD or other disabilities. Um,
My fault.
and I think that that's a struggle, and now there are so many different kinds of supports, which is really nice to see. I think we've come a long way,
Yeah.
particularly in the US. There's obviously still so much progress to be made, but I think we've come a long way, which is a good thing. And I know this podcast really focuses mainly on adults with ADHD, but for so many of us, it really starts in childhood. These problems or challenges don't just pop out of nowhere as an adult. They usually stem from childhood, and perhaps some of your listeners have kids who are in grade school who might be struggling with this. So hopefully it's helpful to someone out there in the cloud, in the interwebs.
Yeah. And then also, there seems to me in the ADHD community seems to be a lot of adults who are in the, kind of going through the journey of getting a diagnosis for their kids, and then start to thinking, "Oh, hang on a minute, I think I've got some of this stuff
Right.
like seeping through my pores."
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. No, for sure.
Does that happen a lot with you, with your in your school? Do you have that? With parents, something.
Good question.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. I see Martin's listening intently. Sometimes that happens, but I think more often, actually, what happens is parents are pretty forthcoming, and they'll say, I had some learning differences as a kid, or I had ADHD, or I had a learning disability, whatever it is.
Right.
And now I'm concerned about my child, and let's do an evaluation to see if they have similar challenges that I had, or if there's something going on with Johnny over here.
Right, because that's what it should be like, right? It should be like that. Like the parent goes, yeah, I'm kind of like a bit this way. Can you what do you think, Mr. School Psychologist? Like it's, like there's some sort of awareness in the whole family, and then the kid can get some support if they need it.
Yeah.
Right. Not just like blundering around like us, just masking our way through the whole thing.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm surprised about the parents' openness to share their own struggles, and they don't need to go into great detail, but just it's enough just to say, when I was a kid, I really struggled in this area or that area, or struggled with focus and attention, or I was impulsive. I think that's brave of parents, and it's really helpful for us as educators as well.
Yeah, I guess also there's I don't know. I think there's maybe been a transition in the whole kind of awareness of this as well. That it's less now that, oh, my kid has got a problem, sort him out.
Yeah.
And actually, I used the word "him" as a provocation because for a while it was just the boys. It was a boy thing. Like teenage boy things. Misbehaving. And now it's I hope it is anyway. I hope it's now, more of, my kid is different. That's it. Maybe.
Yeah. And I think you guys have talked about it on previous episodes that boys do show more externalizing behaviors with ADHD, right, than their female counterparts, and also often looks like things like impulsivity. They often have more disciplinary referrals as a result of their impulsivity, and then with females, it looks more like inattention, difficulty focusing, than so much of the impulsivity. And it's not to say that the females aren't impulsive. There are certainly some that are, but to your point, we see, especially in adolescence, that males just show more of that impulsivity at that age, particularly in that middle school age.
Right.
Yeah, because you deal with like what 11 to 14 year olds.
11 to 14-year-olds. Yeah. Okay. So in the States, that's like 6th through 8th grade here.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't get the whole grade system here. Like if someone says, "Oh, 4th grade," it's like
it's meaningless to you.
Meaningless, meaning nothing to me.
Well, you've only been there 20 years.
I know, right? I've only been there 20 years. I know. I should know these things. Go on.
I've got, for example, I teach 14 to 19-year-olds. Okay. And I've got a student who she's basically I'm in Italy. Basically, she's been made to repeat her year, so she started as the first year, and I can see her, and I'm thinking ADHD, and she's got no one to help her. She's got no help at all, and so it's like I'm just like screaming. I think she's so clearly struggling, you know, both physically and mentally struggling to deal with you know the kind of I don't know the kind of rails they children put on these kind of rails of like this is how we measure intelligence, this is how we measure success, and these kids that just can't handle it. It's like I don't want to be on those rails.
Yeah, that's so hard.
Yeah, which does bring up the question about classroom accommodations and what can you do?
Yeah. So I don't know what it's like in Italy, but in the States we have different kind of classroom supports that you might be able to put in place for students who are struggling. Some of them are just general education, broad classroom supports that are just good for a lot of different types of students, and then some are more specific supports that involve special education supports. But in terms of classroom supports, there's different things that can be put in place, like access to flexible seating. That's a big thing for students with ADHD.
Okay.
So, I think when we grew up, and when you guys grew up, and even when I grew up, the expectation was you sit in your class, you listen to the teacher, yes sir, yes ma'am. Now there's so much more engagement. There's opportunities for movement. So in our classrooms in my school, there's standing desks at the back of every classroom where any student can access if they need it, whether they have a diagnosis of ADHD or not. There's different, there's like wobbly stools if they just need to kind of shift around in their seat. I was even talking to Martin off air. There's chairs that have like little bands at the bottom where students can kind of kick them just to get some input. So it's not so distracting, but they're still getting the input they need. So there's different kind of fidget sensory tools and flexible seating that all students can access, which is, I think, a big shift. Certainly from, when I grew up, there was none of that then.
Right, no, because like when we grew up, the ruler was always a good one. You would just kind of, the wooden ruler, you just put it on the edge of your desk and then twang it. That was always a good one. And then obviously thank you. Yeah. And then there was your pencil or your pen was always a good fidget toy. You just like fiddle,
twirling the pen.
Yeah, twirling the.
Now you've said it, I've realised I haven't got a pen in my hand.
Oh,
no! See, now Paul needs his fiddle.
Anxiety.
That's better.
It's a classic Bic. A classic Bic.
There's a classic Bic.
I know, and then
it's an Italian Bic though.
And then you can flick the little blue pen holder bit.
Bing, bing, bing,
yeah. Ah, the relief.
Oh, the relief. Is that coming through? It's coming across.
Yes, it's coming. It's just coming in waves. Oozing. You're oozing it.
That sounds amazing, Seth. Because like this girl that I was mentioning, she just can't sit still, and you can see her like squirming around on her seat all the time. And the other teachers they're just irritated by it, and to them she's just a distraction. And that's it. End of story, right?
A standing desk makes so much. Like I would have loved that. A standing desk.
Yeah. Because everyone says brainstorming is better when you're standing. If you're in an office environment, brainstorming is better when you're standing up because you get more oxygen to your brain.
Right, and there's just more sort of a movement you can do. You can just. And
I think if you think about it, like you think about what is the purpose of school, right? It's to learn. Who cares how you're doing it? As long as you're taking in the information and you're showcasing your knowledge, who cares if you're sitting or standing or you're upside down in your head? What does it really matter in the end? As long as you're able to demonstrate that you're learning what you're supposed to be
Yeah,
learning,
yeah.
you know?
Well, for instance, I teach conversation English to Italian students, and there's this girl once that she like fixed. I could feel her. She like as soon as I walked into the class, she fixed on me, and eventually I got around to her, and she wanted to present her homework to me, but she didn't want to present it like most of my students do. They didn't want to present it in front of the whole class, so she
Certainly.
just presented it to me one on one, and she blew my mind how good she was.
Yeah.
So then that opened a discussion with other teachers. I said, look, my class isn't called learning how to speak in front of 30 students. It's called conversation English. And if they can do that one to one, I'm more than happy with that, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they're
More than happy with it.
showcasing their knowledge in a different way. And we do
Yeah,
that
they're
with
not
our students too all the time in middle school. Think
right.
about how nerve-wracking it is. You're going through
Yeah.
puberty and you're standing up in front of your whole
Oh my
class
God. Yeah.
and you've got to give a
Oh,
presentation. So often kids will
mm,
reach out and email their teacher and say, can I give this presentation to you after school or during my
yeah.
lunchtime? Or can I
There you
make a
go.
video? Now with technology,
Yeah.
students
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
videos and submit that instead of having to stand up in front of their
Mm.
whole class.
And the difference is huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know
So
what?
it's like we don't want to train our kids to be all good at doing a TED talk. Who gives a damn? And I think at the most, with 35-year career after school, the most people I ever presented to was probably 12 people,
wow,
you know,
Right.
and
yeah,
that's normal, right? That's pretty normal.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You know what? A little light bulb just went off in my head, which is part of school is all. It seems to be like it tries to prepare you to work in the corporate world, right?
Uh-huh.
So the whole sitting down thing then seems to be okay, right? Because they're trying to force you to sit at a desk
Yeah.
later on. And I'm thinking, okay,
Mhm.
right, well, if you get more accommodations in the work environment, so you can have a
Mhm.
standing desk, like ADHD, for example, could be more accommodated for you, then that's going to be good because then that translates back to school and,
Yeah.
hopefully the doing stuff like this in school will then influence the working in environment. So
Mhm.
it's like a sort of a so they both
Yeah.
influence each other.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So that ADHD person, that ADHD student, will then want certain accommodations or expect it
Mhm.
when
yeah,
they go into
Yeah.
the work environment.
yeah,
Yeah. And as I said, there's such unrealistic expectations of students because it's like, as I said, most people in their career will never have to present in front of more than a dozen people ever.
yeah.
Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. God knows, we don't want everyone to be TED talkers. It's it's quite artificial, actually. I think.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it's interesting.
Okay.
So we're talking about these classroom based supports. So in the States, we have something called what's called Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, and it's really just an approach that offers the flexibility for students to learn in different ways and showcase their knowledge. And so school
Uh huh.
districts in our area are really having a big emphasis on this UDL, which is a general education approach. And there's so many different tools, right, that students can access. Like if you're reading a novel in class, maybe you're going to pair that novel with the audiobook, right?
Hmm.
And that way you're both listening auditorily, and then you're
Hmm.
also you're reading it visually, of course, as well. And so you're getting a kind of multimodal learning there. And then there's different tools that are amazing, like read and write and talk to text and text to talk when you're writing an essay. So there's just so many different
Uh huh.
universal tools that students access now to kind of
Hmm.
demonstrate their learning in different ways that certainly was not there when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I've in my school, that occasionally we get the kids to upload their presentations online, as a podcast, um, and the difference is just phenomenal when
Wow.
because they're basically recording it at home.
Mhm.
The difference is night and day,
Hmm.
night and day. Just so much more confident. And I actually, I wondered if they'd actually been they've did the presentations with some kind of artificial intelligence because it was that good. I was blown away, and I actually had to ask another teacher whether wait a minute, this is just so good, it's almost unbelievable. She said no, the difference is huge when they record their presentations and upload them.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, AI though, that's an interesting point. We have filters on to look for AI.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, because
Well,
it's
that's
definitely a
interesting.
big issue. Yeah, and I think, will only continue to grow as an issue.
Yeah,
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 it's almost like like an arms race. I feel like at
yeah,
this point you get AI, and then you've
yeah.
got the kind of how to spot AI, and then the AI is
Mm,
going to try and outwit the how to spot the
yeah.
AI.
I mean, it's not
yeah.
going away, right? So
No,
No.
we have to adapt and
Mm,
learn to spot it,
right.
as you
yeah.
said. Yeah,
I wonder how AI could benefit ADHD at some time. Could be interesting.
yeah. I'm sure it could be helpful.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, what it does for me is it can do all the really boring things. So
Mm.
if I have to
Yeah.
write an email or something, or if I'm applying for a job and there's a cover letter that I have to write,
Uh huh.
I will let AI do all of that. Like,
Yeah.
and it will be 75% right, and I have to kind of go in and tweak. But I'd
Yeah.
much rather go in and tweak something rather than just sit there and write that whole goddamn boring thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Based on your advice, Martin, because I had to
Yes.
draw a breath, intake of breath. Drum roll. Could always have
I'm
a
an
drum roll.
influencer.
Yeah, an
Go on.
influence. I had to write an intro for my professional website, and I did it on using artificial intelligence. Because why in the end? Because I'm not very good about writing about myself, and when
Right.
I got a AI to write it, it was way better than I could have written it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not to say it was fake. It was just actually more genuine about what my skills were. Because I generally don't. I'm not very good about talking. Talking about myself.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
I've got this chatbot to kind of wrote it. I thought, who is this guy? Oh, it's me.
Right.
Yeah.
So actually, while we're on that subject of testing and tests and exams, like, can you give people more time?
Yeah,
What's
so there's actually in think one of your more recent podcasts, you were talking about accommodations in the workplace, and I was thinking
Oh
about,
yeah.
in the United States we have something called a Section 504 plan, which is a federal,
Fancy.
yeah, it's very fancy, but it is a legal document. And basically, what it is it protects individuals from discrimination based on their disability. So it's not
Uh-huh.
just for students with ADHD. You
Right.
could have a 504 plan. Let's say you broke your arm and you broke your dominant right arm and you need a scribe to write for you, right? So you could have a
Hmm.
504 plan for that. But it also could be for ADHD as well. And so what that does is it helps level the playing field for that student. And so for students with ADHD in the classroom, that could look like things like having checklists for long-term assignments, breaking tasks
Hmm.
down into smaller parts, access to those fidget or sensory tools like we
Hmm.
mentioned before, refocusing and redirecting students when needed, preferential seating. So maybe it's not necessarily sitting at the front of the class, but sitting away from distractions or sitting near the source of
Hmm.
instruction, wherever that best place for
Hmm.
that student is.
Okay.
And then in terms of testing, Martin, like you asked, it could involve things like extended time, but I'm going to circle back to that in a minute. Refocusing and redirecting, kind of breaks as needed during testing, um, What I often find though with kids with ADHD, especially if it's they have the impulsive type of ADHD, hyperactive type, is that they actually don't need extended time, but more need prompts to slow down because they'll rush through their tests.
Oh,
They'll be done with the
okay.
test in, 4 minutes. And then they
Right.
say, okay, here you go, professor, right? Here's the test. And it's really like, okay, it's great that you're done, but why don't you sit down for a few more minutes, check over your
Right.
work, make sure that you've
Maybe a
answered
bit of
everything to the best of your ability before
maybe
you
a bit of
submit it.
people pleasing seeping in there as well.
Yeah, it can be. So, I think when it's tricky, you have to really look, when you're talking about extended time, you have to really look at a student's processing speed. So if their
Uh-huh.
processing speed is lower, that might be a reason to give them extended time on a test. But if they are truly kind of average in terms of their processing speed, it's not necessarily the best thing to have more time. You have to kind of look at the data to see
Oh,
if they
interesting.
actually need that extended time, because otherwise
Wow.
it's more time to kind of be off task,
All right, yeah,
and more time
yeah,
to lose your concentration, more time to
yeah.
possibly feel anxious about how you might do on that test.
Oh, blimey! I
Right.
never
So
thought about that.
it's not necessarily the
Wow.
best thing, but every individual case is different, of course.
I'd never thought of that, but yeah, it kind of makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Wow.
so
So
that's a
you
general
guys in the
education.
States,
So
you got it. You're kind of like really ahead of the game in the States.
USA, USA.
yeah, good thing you moved here, Martin.
I know, right?
Yeah.
A
Well
a
done,
bit late
Martin.
though. A bit late.
Well done, Martin. I think we should have. Yeah.
Yeah, I just passed up on the whole. Oh, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, no, right. Because I think even wherever you are in the world, like there does seem to be like like parents can influence the classroom, right, and how their kids are educated to an extent, right?
Sure.
A little bit, I'm sure. Like
Yeah.
so things like just being flexible with this, or no, I like the idea of more flexible heating and just
Mm.
access to fidget toys, or even like I like the idea of having a wobbly stool that
Hmm.
you could just kind of slightly just kind of like do a little bit of a stimmy rock
Mhm.
thing, or or a seat. I mean, that's all these little things
Yeah. It's
can
weird. I
be.
can picture you as well, Martin.
Yeah.
I can picture you.
Hey,
They're little, but they
hey,
make a big difference.
I know
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
Fabulous.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. Right. Well, I mean, like, is there any other support
Yeah.
stuff out
Sure.
there?
Well,
Yeah. So
I've got. Can I? Before we move on, I've got a
yeah,
question for you,
Yes.
Seth.
go
So,
for
or
it.
and also Martin, but especially you, Seth. If
What
you
back
can,
in?
if you could go back. Imagine if you had those facilities when you were, at middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I often think about that.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, I don't even know if there was a school psychologist available
Uh
to
huh.
me in middle school. And if there was, I probably should have been in their office, getting the help that
Right.
I needed,
Knocking
um,
on their door.
knocking on their door. But yeah, I mean, as I said, school was, a place of learning. You sit in your assigned seat, you know, you focus for the full, whatever, 45 minutes of class, whatever it is.
Right.
And that was my experience, and glad to say it's very different now. Not to say that there aren't still struggles that our students still
Hmm.
face, but at least it's not those struggles, right? Because this is something we
Right.
can actually do to make a difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's just worth pointing out again. I know we've said this before, but if you've had ADHD like us and you're late diagnosed and you've gone through the whole school system and you've struggled,
Yeah.
I think even what we're saying is that it doesn't mean that you're stupid or you're not
Mm.
intelligent. It's just that very rigid structure you just didn't quite fit in and work with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
Yeah.
it has. It seems that school is very, it doesn't really how school fundamentally works doesn't really yes, seem to want to rate you on an intelligence scale, right? Here's a really bright kid, here's a middling kid, here's a really stupid
Hmm.
kid, right? And it
Yeah.
just seemed to like view kids in
It's
that
really narrow. It was
narrow
really
way.
narrow. I personally grew up with I was really passionate about how intellect was measured.
Yeah.
I'm really, really passionate about it, and I was constantly frustrated with how backward we are still in measuring intelligence, still to this day.
Yeah, and I have to give IQ tests as part of my job, which, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, which is, and then part of it
Wow,
is for the special education process. But like I tell families, it's just one piece of information. In
it's
no
really
way
narrow,
does it,
right?
it's narrow, and in no way does it paint the whole picture of any child. Doesn't
Yeah.
ever tell the full story.
Mm.
And your child is
So
always more than a number, right?
I've
Um,
read recently that IQ tests have bears no relation to social intelligence whatsoever, and does not have any relationship to creative intelligence either. Zero.
yeah. Yeah, so what IQ tests in schools generally are they're a prediction of how well a student might do academically. It's a
Uh huh.
snapshot and a prediction. That's
Yeah.
how it's essentially how we're using them. And to your point, there's many other kind of intelligence, social intelligence, emotional intelligence, and
Uh
by
huh.
no means is it a reflection of those types of intelligence. And it doesn't tell the whole story. So when we talk about supports that a student might need, we're really looking at so many different points of data and information because we want to really paint a holistic view of a child and make sure that we're capturing kind of all the areas.
Hmm.
Right.
Well, I guess especially if the parents have a narrow idea as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't happen too often. But I imagine there's some parents that are
It
like,
does, yeah.
my kid, what's wrong with him?
I think one of the hardest things for parents to hear um, is not necessarily that their IQ is low, but that they're average. The term average is a
Oh
hard thing
wow.
to hear. Like, oh, but
Mm.
there's nothing above average. There's nothing exceptional, right, about my
Oh
Okay.
student.
no.
It was
Right.
just average, and
It's like one
that's
time we said about our podcast. I think I'd rather people hated our podcast or loved it, rather than someone say they were indifferent to
oh
it.
yeah, it was average
You know,
podcast.
indifferent,
Yeah.
indifferent to our podcast. Oh God, I'd rather you hated it.
Yeah,
Yeah. And said
Okay.
so. So that
Anyway,
we got a bit of social engagement. Yeah. But
right.
yeah, no, like yeah, that average thing, right? Because
Mm.
I'm almost thinking because one, you think your kid's really special, or if they are a little bit, struggling, then you kind of know that they're struggling. It's that average, yeah, that average
That's
being.
really profound. Actually, it really
Oh,
strikes a
I'm
note.
yeah.
sit
I
with that a
mean,
minute.
usually, if it's a parent referral, so now we're kind of talking about special education.
Mhm.
Then in the States, there's a whole referral process for that. And we do different kinds of evaluations, psychological evaluations, educational, and then depending on the referral concern, we'll do other testing. Like if there's a speech
Wow.
concern or OT, we'll evaluate in those identified areas. But
Uh huh.
yeah, if it's a referral concern, most parents are expecting to see that something is a bit lower, right? And so if it's not, and it's just average, that's a hard thing to
Oh,
hear too, because then it's like,
Wow.
well, what's wrong? I know
It
my
makes.
child's been
God damn
struggling,
it!
but
It's
you're
making my
telling me
buttocks
everything is
clench.
average.
Oh, there's something really
God.
resonating with that.
Yeah. It's making my buttocks clench.
Oh man,
So,
average.
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah.
who would have
sudden
thought that?
discomfort. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I know, but
Average.
average is a very good thing in my world.
Oh
you know?
yes.
Why?
I mean, I
Why?
think it's that disparity, isn't there, between some sort of emotional response to average and actually average is like, oh,
It's a good thing.
it's okay.
Paul, you asked why, and the reason is
Yeah.
because average means if you've got an average IQ, it means your IQ is intact. You've got the ability to you've got an average
Ah,
ability to kind of navigate different things, and that's a good thing.
potential.
yeah, you've got the potential, right? You don't have an innate um, deficit in a certain area, which is a good
Ah.
thing.
What if you're on the spectrum? Like, so there's a guy that studied. I'm going off on a tangent here. Prepare yourselves. There's a guy. He studied
Step in.
octopuses. He's guys. He researched octopuses for 20 years, and his theory is that octopuses, you cannot measure the intelligence of an octopus because an octopus is so disengaged and disinterested in the human way of measuring intelligence that they don't even try.
They
That's
probably
interesting.
look at us and think, what are these like weird meat sacks
Yeah.
wandering around on
Very
dry land?
stupid form of measuring success. I'm not going to even bother. I'm not going to even get out of bed to do that test. This is literally this is a theory. This guy who's researched octopuses for 20 years, so they're off the scale intelligence to the extent that we have no way of measuring it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel I felt uncomfortable ordering octopus once, and now I kind of I kind of don't eat it anymore. Really.
No.
I feel
Yeah.
really guilty about eating octopus,
Yeah.
even though I really like it.
Oh, yeah. No, I hear you. I'm with you.
Anyway,
Well,
bit of a tangent there. Sorry.
That's a good tangent. Yeah.
Yeah. Well done, Paul, for that tangent.
Yes, thank you, Paul.
Thanks.
I'll give it 8 out of 10. I'll give it
Yeah.
a B plus.
Thank you very much. Okay.
But in terms of this,
so average, okay.
Yeah, so in terms of this this referral process, though, students, I work with students who have an IEP, or what's called an individualized education program. And the main difference between that and the 504 program is you're really talking about direct services. So the 504 really only has the accommodations for the classroom and the testing accommodations, whereas an IEP, you're going to have direct services. So that might look like a form of having another special education teacher in the room, or accessing a resource room or something like that. And then there also might be related services, and that's where kind of I come in. So it might be related services in the form of counseling or PT or speech or OT. And so I provide counseling services for students who do have IEPs. And for students with ADHD, it often involves things like behavior regulation and impulsivity, and often reading social cues in the classroom, and hoping that my work then generalizes into a broad setting like a classroom, so that they can be successful in their own way.
Man, your phone is just like...
He's a popular guy.
I know.
I think that's what that means.
Yeah. It's not mine.
Oh, isn't it?
No.
Oh, Jesus, mine.
It's yours.
You?
Good Lord.
Martin's flying off the chain here.
Let me just put that down on the floor. That's my Eddie's gone to the dog groomers, and they just
okay.
And straight after this podcast, I'm going to go and pick him up. So little Eddie's getting his hair done.
Oh.
Is he?
Yeah, he's getting his hair and nails did. Yeah.
Backsack and crack.
Yes.
Backsack and crack.
So
I'm going to see Eddie on a lounger, getting his.
I'm
anyway.
horrified. I'm horrified.
I was interested in what you were saying just now, Seth, because I've got a student. He's quite severely autistic, and in one of my classes, and he has a permanent assistant that goes with him to all the classes. I've always had this sense of like other kids in the class thinking, well, actually, I could do something like that, and he gets a lot of care and attention, hell of a lot. And obviously, no school could afford to do it, but in theory, a classroom could be full of assistants, right? If they're really taking care of everyone's particular needs.
They could benefit, yeah. And, we have different levels of special education support where I work. So sometimes it's just one paraprofessional, who are assigned specifically to work with a group of students, might be like 5 or 6 students. However, they're really there for all the students, whatever, 25 students in the classroom. So they might pop around to all the different students and check in to make sure that they don't have any questions, or provide support where needed. And then there are those one-to-one professionals that are there.
It seems,
sometimes for different reasons.
I mean, certainly in Italian schools, they're pretty good at helping students with more extreme ends of complications. Like in autism, or in other cases with self-harming. There's a child that has a assistant that with him in all the classes. But the potential is good, because it's easy to like spot and give attention to the extreme cases, but actually there's probably a whole myriad of other students that could do with that kind of help, just extra help.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And just in terms of my own work, the general education students are the ones that I end up kind of doing the most crisis intervention, crisis work with, because often they're not getting the level of support potentially that they need to begin with. But I often find it's the general education students that I end up kind of having to drop everything and help them through a crisis or whatever.
What a great job you do. Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
It keeps me on my toes. There's never a dull moment, and every day, every day looks different. And I always joke that I come into work every day with a plan, and my plan never goes as scheduled. I always
hallelujah to that.
It always looks different.
No, what a great job you do. It's just amazing. Must be hugely rewarding.
It can be. Every now and then you get that student that has made a ton of progress, or thanks you at the end of the year, or many years later you get that student who graduated high school and still remembers you after all those years. So it has its moments.
Fabulous.
Absolutely.
Nice.
The kids are easy. It's the adults that are hard.
Right. So, all right. So we've talked about a whole bunch of things, of which we'll put some links in the show notes, right? To the I think you mentioned a couple of things, right?
Yeah, maybe the 504.
Yeah,
and an IEP.
Right. So if there's any helpful links that we will shove them from him, we'll shove them in the show notes so you can go and have a look at them. And then so it's the last question that we always ask every guest. And now you are as you're now in ADHDville, you get to kind of like pick. You can set up a place all by yourself. I think we've had
bookshops.
We've had the Broken Spine bookshop. We have Maddie's like fun fair sort of amusement park.
Had a design shop. We've had a tacos and tequila bar.
Yeah, from your mate Jonathan.
Yeah.
So
no pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
What would you like to do in ADHDville?
Does ADHDville have a record shop?
No.
No record shop. Really? Okay. So maybe it needs a record shop.
Loving that.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I think I'll name it Looney Tunes.
Nice.
Like like the cartoon, but tunes spelled TUNES.
Yeah.
For the tunes.
All right.
Yeah.
And so what is it going to be like vinyl, CDs?
I think we'll do a bit of everything.
All right.
Definitely vinyl will make a comeback, as it's been. Some CDs.
Is it going to be like the shop in the film High Fidelity?
Yeah, something like but even cooler. Yeah.
Even
cooler. Even to another level. Cool. It's actually funny. I was trying to listen to a CD the other day, and I realized I didn't have a way of playing it.
Oh, really? You're just wandering around with the disc going.
Wait. How am I gonna play this?
Oh.
Yeah.
Dude, that sucks.
Yeah, it did. Wah, wah, wah.
You know what? I mean, like I distinctly remember. Obviously, you know, like we're old enough to remember. Actually, you know, all record shops were just vinyl, right? That was it. There was nothing else. You just went in there, and there was like racks and racks. You knew they'd all be in alphabetical order. Is this your earliest memories of record shops, or do they start a bit later?
No, definitely. You know, they had the vinyl, they had the CDs,
right? And then
even cassettes.
Tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they were all alphabetical, most of the bands I knew, like I knew that there was quite a few in the S's, in the S's and the T section, right? So that's where I go first, in the S's and the T's, because that's where most of the bands I knew were.
You were listening to the Pistols, or something like that. The. Yeah.
And then one day I went into HMV in Croydon. It was South London, and they'd completely taken away all the vinyl, and it was just CDs.
Oh, did your heart break?
Oh yeah, no. I walked in there, yay, and it was like, what hell is this? What's happened? So I'm pleased that ADHDville now has a record shop and it has vinyl in it.
Yeah, what an honor! Thank you. I'm glad to be a part of ADHDville.
Cool.
And again, these mayors, you know, for anyone listening, they're okay. They're okay.
Yeah, vote for us.
They're above. They're above average.
Above
average.
I'll take that.
I'll take that. Could do better. See me.
Awesome.
On my score reports, could do better. See me.
There you go.
Right. Okay. Well, let's just hop back in the car, and we'll just go to the. Back. We can either go back to the town hall,
post office,
or we can head to the post office. All right. Let's just pile in our B plus car and go to the post office.
There we go. So your feedback is really vital to us. So we read all the comments, and we might read out yours on our podcast, on future podcasts. Do we have for some posts, Mr. West?
Oh God damn it! You know what?
You're just reaching down to the post bag.
I am reaching down to the post bag. Don't even say that one. I know that it is. Where are we? I did have some. Christ on a bike. Am I going to have to like cut this part really short? I know that one of our TikTok people, Leo Connor, it's a big birthday coming up. So she's a big fan of the pod. She watches every episode. So happy birthday to her.
It was my birthday as well 2 days ago.
Happy
was
birthday.
it?
Thank you.
Wow.
57.
That is very nice.
As in the Heinz 57 varieties.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Yeah.
wow, really?
Yeah.
That is funny. And she did say so. For example, she said, after I just said everyone that the podcast had dropped on Tuesday, yesterday for us, she did comment, say, sorry, I can't come out tonight. New ADHDville podcast has dropped. That's tonight's tea time entertainment sorted. Cheers, pals.
Love that. That's amazing. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
God, warms your cockles.
My cockles are red hot.
I guess it doesn't translate in the States.
How warm they are.
It's a very. I think it's a London thing. You say warms the cockles.
Very British. Yeah.
Cockles of your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what the cockles. So anatomically, which part? If I had to get a doctor to point to what the cockle of your heart was or where it was, where would it be?
No.
Don't know.
Anywho,
cracking on. We are here every Tuesday. For all purveyors of fine podcasts, please subscribe to the pod and rate us most educational.
Especially this week.
And feel free to correspond at will in the comments. But wait, there is more. If you wish to see our beautiful faces, you can sally forth to the YouTubes, and also you can pick up a quill and email us at ADHDville@gmail.com. Let me just hit the outro button. There we go. So you can come and visit us on TikTok, YouTube, the Cupboard of Friends known as Facebook. But in the meantime, just be flipping kind to yourself.
And I beseech you, fellow ADHDers, know thyself, such the hound, come hither and get the flesh.
And thanks Seth for coming in. And
thank you. Cheers.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for being there. All right.
There, says the mayor. That's that.